at 4:31. Jeremy Corbyn has been elected as the new leader of the Labour Party in a landslide victory. The veteran left-winger secured almost 60% of the vote.
We don't have to be unequal. It doesn't have to be unfair. Poverty isn't inevitable. Things can, and they will, change.
A short while ago, Mr Corbyn celebrated with supporters at a pro-refugee rally in central London. Tom Watson is elected as the party's deputy leader. He's called on all MPs to respect the result. The Conservatives say Labour now represent a huge risk to the country. In other news, at least 2 British tourists have been killed after a train travelling to the Indian town of Shimla derailed. The train had been chartered privately and was carrying more than 30 British tourists. Authorities in Saudi Arabia order an investigation after a crane collapsed at the Grand Mosque in the Muslim holy city of Mecca, killing at least 107 people. Just an update now on that train crash in India in which 2 British tourists have been killed and 1 has been injured. The Minister for Asia, Hugo Swire, confirming the deaths of those 2 British nationals, 2 women, saying his thoughts are with the family and friends of the dead and injured at this time. Teams from the British High Commission in New Delhi and the Deputy High Commission in Chandigarh on their way to the area to help those affected. They were on the Calcutta-Shimla mountain line. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a popular tourist attraction. We understand that the train had been privately chartered by the York-based travel company Great Rail Journeys to carry a party of 37 British tourists. More now on the landslide victory of the left-wing MP Jeremy Corbyn, who has been elected leader of the Labour Party with almost 60% of the vote. In a moment, we'll hear what Jeremy Corbyn had to say on accepting the Labour leadership. First, though, here's Christian Fraser with a look at the man and his policies.
So here he is then, the new leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, at the age of 66, member for Islington North since 1983, no front bench experience, always the rebel until this point. I'm pledging to take Labour in a totally different direction. There'll be none of the austerity light of the other 3 candidates. He is vehemently anti-austerity. How did he do it? Well, he stirred the passions and the emotions of the Labour grassroots. It was a new kind of politics, said his supporters. Len McCluskey, the General Secretary of Unite, said he lit a light in the movement which he couldn't envisage some 4 weeks ago. But there are those within the party who are worried. Remember, he only got 10% of the support of the Parliamentary Labour Party. John Cruddas, the former policy coordinator under Ed Miliband, says he fears Jeremy Corbyn might be an early 80s tribute act. And remember this from Tony Blair: if your heart is in the politics of Jeremy Corbyn, he says, then you need to get yourself a heart transplant. So he needs to reunite the party, but can he do it around the policies in his manifesto? Let's take a look. As I said, vehemently anti-austerity, so there'd be higher taxes for the rich, protection for those on welfare. The Bank of England would be allowed to print money. He calls it people's quantitative easing, much more cash for things like railways, housing and digital. His policies on defence might worry some on the government benches. Of course, as the chair of the Stop the War campaign, he'd get rid of Trident. He may well pull Britain out of NATO if he was leader. And he's opposed to the airstrikes in Syria and Iraq. In terms of the railways, he'd renationalise those along with the energy companies. He's very much in favour of free education. His children, he wanted to go to comprehensive schools, so he'd scrap tuition fees for graduates, replacing them with grants. And in terms of Europe, with the referendum coming up, he sits on the fence a little bit. All he would say is he wants a better Europe, whatever that may be. So, Jeremy Corbyn then, a very different Labour Party under him. Maybe interesting to see who he puts in his shadow cabinet. Maybe those that were in that cabinet in May may well be the rebels.
Christian Fraser. Well, in his acceptance speech, Jeremy Corbyn called for a decent and better society, including greater equality across the world. Here's more from the new Labour leader.
Can I start by thanking everyone who took part in this election, this huge democratic exercise of more than 500,000 people all across this country. It showed our party and our movement passionate, democratic, diverse, united and absolutely determined in our quest for a decent and better society that is possible for all. And there are many people I want to thank before I say a few words, if I may. First of all, to Ian McNichol, the General Secretary of the party, and all of the party staff for their incredible hard work during this campaign, the general election campaign, and all the other campaigns that we do and will continue to do. Ian, thank you very much, and please make sure all our staff are aware of the appreciation we all have for all of them. Thank you. I want also to pay a huge thanks and tribute to Harriet Harman, who has been our acting leader and our deputy leader, and before that, our acting leader. I've known Harriet for a very long time, and what I would say of her is her absolute commitment and passion for decency, equality and the rights of women in our society is something that we will honour her for, thank her for, and we have legislation that's been brought about by her determination. Harriet, thank you so much for all you've done. And the way in which you've led the party since the tragedy of the election result in May. I want also to thank and congratulate Tom Watson on his election as Deputy Leader of the party. Tom is passionate about communication, passionate about holding the state and unaccountable people who don't wish to be accountable to account. Tom's your man to do that. I want also to thank Ed Miliband for all the work he did as leader of our party. I had a very long conversation with Ed a couple of days ago, and I thanked him for his work as leader of the party. I thanked him for his work as Environment Secretary and somebody who's passionate about defending the world's environment against the way it's being destroyed at the present time. But I also thanked him for the way in which he stood up to the abuse that he received by much of our media. And the dignity he showed when his late father, the great Ralph Miliband, was so brutally abused by some of our media. So Ed, thank you for all of that. I want to thank the fellow leadership candidates. We're discussing the number, whether it's 29, 35 or 39 hustings we've been to together since this election started. We'll discuss that later and exchange diaries. But it's been a fascinating experience for all of us. And I want to thank them for the way the debates were conducted, the way that we were able to put forward political debate and political differences and still come out at the end of it with a group hug. We're going to reform ourselves as an ABBA tribute band and continue this work in the future. Andy Burnham was our Health Secretary, and Andy's passion and determination for a national health service as a human right, free at the point of use, is something that comes over every time Andy speaks. And his passion for comprehensive education to ensure all children have a reasonable, fair and decent start in life. I want to say thank you to Yvette Cooper for all the work she's done in government and in the party, but in particular over the past few weeks, helping to shape and turn round public opinion to show sympathy and humanity towards refugees and the way they're treated. And one of my first acts as the leader of the party will be to go to the demonstration this afternoon to show support for the way refugees must be treated and should be treated in this country. I want to thank Liz Kendall for her friendship during this campaign, for the way we've managed to have some moderately different opinions on a number of issues, but we've managed to maintain a very good friendship. And Liz is somebody that I admire because she absolutely stands up for what she believes in. Whether it's easy, simple or popular, or uneasy, not simple or popular. So Liz, thank you very much. Those late night train rides will never be the same again. So thank you to my fellow candidates and to the thousands of party members that have attended the hustings events all over the country. And it's quite amazing that every one of them was completely full, standing room only, and many, many other members and supporters were unable to get along to them. That is a tribute to our party, all the candidates, both for deputy leader and for leader, and the way in which our members want passionately to engage in debate and be able to influence party policy and make our party more inclusive, more democratic, and their membership better listened to in the future. I want to thank my own campaign team. They've been absolutely amazing. We came together after we had got onto the ballot paper, I appreciate with difficulty, and I want to say thank you to the 36 members of Parliament, well 35 plus me because I nominated myself, for nominating me for this position. I know some of them had possibly some reluctance to do so, it is reported, but they did so in a spirit of inclusion and a spirit of democracy. And I thank them for that, and I look forward to working with all of them after this election campaign because we've got great work to do in the party. And so our campaign began with very little, and we gained support, we gained volunteers, and I thank the unions that nominated me, Unite, Unison, the TSSA, ASLEF, the Communication Workers Union, the Prison Officers Association, the Bakers Union, the Socialist Education Association, the Socialist Health Association, and the support received from the RMT Union and the FBU, and all the other unions that took part in this campaign. We are a party organically linked together between the unions and party membership and all the affiliated organisations. That is where we get our strength from. And as a former union organiser in Newpie, now part of Unison, I fully understand the importance of unions at the workplace, defending people's rights, standing up for their members, and that's why I don't appreciate what this government is trying to do to shackle unions in the trade union bill they're bringing forward on Monday. Our campaign attracted the support of 16,000 volunteers all over the country, organisers in each part of the country that organised all the events and meetings that we have held. And in total, we've done 99 of those events. Today is the century, and we are here at the end of this very long campaign. And it's been quite incredible, the numbers of people that have come forward to join our party. But before I go on to that, I want to just say a big thank you. They all know who they are. To my many personal friends, many people, everyone in Islington North Labour Party, for electing me to Parliament 8 times up until May of this year. Their fantastic comradeship, friendship and support. It's been quite amazing, and I absolutely value their advice. Sometimes it's advice you don't always want to receive, but that's the best advice you get. And I say thank you to all of them in Islington North. I also say a huge thank you to all of my widest family, all of them, because they've been through the most appalling levels of abuse from some of our media over the past 3 months. It's been intrusive, it's been abusive, it's been simply wrong. And I say to journalists, attack public political figures, make criticism of them, that's okay, that is what politics is about. But please, don't attack people who didn't ask to be put in the limelight, merely want to get on with their lives. Leave them alone in all circumstances. During this amazing 3 months, our party has changed. We've grown enormously. We've grown enormously because of the hopes of so many ordinary people for a different Britain, a better Britain, a more equal Britain, a more decent Britain. They're fed up with the inequality, the injustice, the unnecessary poverty. All those issues have brought people in a spirit of hope and optimism. So I say to the new members of the party, or those that have joined in as registered supporters or affiliated supporters, welcome. Welcome to our party, welcome to our movement. And I say to those returning to the party who were in it before and felt disillusioned and went away, welcome back. Welcome back to your party, welcome home. And there's the media, and maybe many of us simply didn't understand the views of many young people within our society. They had been written off as a non-political generation who were simply not interested, hence the relatively low turnout and low level of registration of young people in the last general election. They weren't. They're a very political generation that were turned off by the way in which politics was being conducted and not attracted or not interested in it. We have to and must change that. So the fight back now of our party gathers speed and gathers pace. I'm delighted that Kezia Dugdale is here today, our leader in Scotland. We're all going to be campaigning in Scotland, for Labour in Scotland, with those great traditions, those great Labour traditions in Scotland. I thank Carwyn Jones for his leadership and the way in which we're going to fight in Wales, and I congratulate them on ending the internal market in the health service in Wales, something we want to do in the rest of Britain. And I say congratulations to Marvin Rees, selected yesterday as our mayoral candidate for Bristol. We're all going to be down there, Marvin, helping you and supporting you to win Bristol. And to my friend Sadiq Khan, who's been elected as our mayoral candidate for London. Sadiq, we're going to be campaigning together. And we're going to be campaigning together, particularly on the crucial issue of housing in London. I am fed up with the social cleansing of London by this Tory government and its policies. We need a Labour mayor. We need a Labour mayor in London who can ensure we do house everyone in London. We do end the sky-high rents. We do end the insecurity of those living in the private rented sector. We need a Labour mayor to bring that about in this wonderful great city of London. And Sadiq's the man to do it. This week, the Tories will show what they're really made of. On Monday, they have the trade union bill designed to undermine even the ILO conventions and shackle democratic unions and destroy another element of democracy within our society. We have to oppose that. They're also pushing the welfare reform bill, which will bring such misery and poverty to so many of the poorest in our society. I want us as a movement to be proud, strong and able to stand up and say, we want to live in a society where we don't pass by on the other side of those people rejected by an unfair welfare system. Instead, we reach out to end the scourge of homelessness and desperation that so many people face in our society. We're strong enough and big enough and able to do that. That is what we're about. There are many, many issues we face, and many people face desperation in other parts of the world. And I think it's quite incredible the way the mood in Europe has changed over the past few weeks, of understanding that people fleeing from wars, they are the victims of wars, they are the generational victims of war, they're the intergenerational victims of war, end up in desperation, end up in terrible places, end up trying to gain a place of safety, end up trying to exercise their refugee rights. They're human beings just like you, just like me. Let's deal with the refugee crisis with humanity, with support, with help, with compassion, to try to help people who are trying to get to a place of safety, trying to help people who are stuck in refugee camps, but recognise going to war creates a legacy of bitterness and problems. Let us be a force for change in the world, a force for humanity in the world, a force for peace in the world, and a force that recognises we cannot go on like this.
It's
with
true.
grotesque levels of global inequality.
It's true.
Grotesque threats to our environment.
You go
all
and
around
create
the world,
war and come and
without
give them
rich
refugees.
and powerful
It doesn't
governments
mean
stepping
any-
up to the plate
You
to
should
make
stop
sure
the war.
our world becomes
If they don't
safer
fight, they
and
don't
better.
look for refugees.
And those people don't end up
Refugee.
in poverty, in refugee camps, wasting their lives away when they could be contributing so much to the good of all of us on this planet. We are one world. Let that message go out today from this conference centre here in London. I conclude by this. The Tories have used the economic crisis of 2008 to impose a terrible burden on the poorest people in this country. Those that have seen their wages frozen or cut, those that can't afford to even sustain themselves properly, those that rely on food banks to get by. It's not right, it's not necessary, and it's got to change. We need an economic strategy that improves people's lives, that expands our economy, that reaches out to care for everybody. You can't do that if at the same time you do nothing about grotesque levels of inequality within our society. We need to develop an economic policy that deals with those issues. And so our party is about justice, is about democracy, it is about the great traditions we walk on. Those that founded our party and our movement, those that stood up for human rights and justice, the right for women to vote, the right for others to vote. We stand here today because of their work. But we go forward now as a movement and a party, bigger than we've ever been for a very, very long time, stronger than we've ever been for a very long time, more determined than we've been for a very long time, to show to everyone that the objectives of our party are intact. Our passion is intact. Our demand for humanity is intact. And we as a party are going to reach out to everyone in this country to take us on that journey together, so no one is left on the side. Everyone has a decent chance in life and a decent place within our society. That's what Labour was brought about to achieve. That is what we're going to achieve. This election campaign is, as we see here, about shaping our future. Our party is going to, I hope, become more inclusive, more involved, more democratic, and we're going to shape the future of everyone in this country in a way that I think will be remembered as something that is good for everyone, that brings about the justice that we all crave, and that is what brought us into this wonderful party and this wonderful movement ourselves. I say thank you to everyone for all their support, friendship and comradeship during this election process. And I say thank you in advance to us all working together to achieve great victories, not just electorally for Labour, but emotionally for the whole of our society, to show we don't have to be unequal, it doesn't have to be unfair, poverty isn't inevitable, things can and they will change. Thank you very much.
Jeremy Corbyn's acceptance speech earlier today after his victory in the Labour leadership election. We'll be live in Westminster with more reaction in just a few minutes' time. First, let's head over to the other side of the newsroom to check out the very latest with the weather. That's with Nick Miller. Hi, Nick.
Hi Anita, some warm sunshine across parts of eastern England today, 22 Celsius the top temperature, but we've seen some thunderstorms run through northeast England in the past hour or two. 11 millimetres of rain in Scarborough on the North Yorkshire coast, they're pushing away. Sunshine is following on behind. Still some outbreaks of rain though in northern Scotland for a time this evening into tonight. Gales developing in the far northwest of Scotland. One or two showers dotted about through western parts, but many places will become dry overnight and clear. Temperatures a little bit cooler than this in rural spots. Some sunshine around to start the day tomorrow. Very windy in the far northwest of Scotland. The winds ease into the afternoon, turning wet in southwest England, especially Cornwall and Devon, and some gales developing here, and outbreaks of rain reaching parts of southeast England, East Anglia, and possibly the East Midlands too. Where you stay dry with variable cloud and sunshine, temperatures reach into the high teens. Low pressure still with us on Monday. Plenty of showers for England and Wales. Could see a bit of rain through parts of eastern Scotland for a time, but I think Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing the best of it on Monday, and it's a really unsettled week ahead. You can watch our weather for the week ahead video online.
Do you seek solitude or like meeting new people? Are you inspired by the familiar or the unknown? And how can you truly experience other cultures?
For the Filipinos, the whole world is a stage.
Whether you're discovering new destinations or revisiting popular places,
There is something still quite cool about driving Route 66.
let the travel show be your guide to the world. Tomorrow at 8:30 on the BBC News Channel.
This is BBC News at 5 o'clock. I'm Jane Hill at Westminster, where Jeremy Corbyn has been elected Labour leader.
251.
The veteran left-winger, an outsider when the contest began, won a landslide victory. His first act as leader was to attend a pro-refugee rally in central London.
We as ordinary decent people stand up and say to our government, recognise your obligations in law.
We'll keep the red flag flying here.
His win has been hailed by the left wing of the party, and the former leader, Ed Miliband, gave him his support.
I'll be offering Jeremy Corbyn my support, and I hope people across the party do so too. I hope also, and I expect him to do this, that Jeremy reaches out to all parts of the party.
Hello and a very good afternoon again from Westminster on an extraordinary day for British politics, the day that a 66-year-old Labour backbencher was elected overwhelmingly as the new party leader. Jeremy Corbyn, who's been a backbencher representing the constituency of Islington North in London for 32 years, who started this contest as a 500-to-1 outsider, is now the leader of the opposition. In his victory speech, he told party members and supporters that it is time for the party now to unite. Let's just take a look at some of the figures in this election and the actual breakdown of that vote. As we say, overwhelming win for Jeremy Corbyn. On the first ballot, very nearly 60% of the vote, as you can see there. He pushed Andy Burnham into second place. Andy Burnham, who started this contest as the favourite. He took just 19% of the vote. Yvette Cooper a little behind him on 17%, and then the fourth candidate, Liz Kendall, polling just 4.5%. We found out today who the deputy leader is going to be as well. Of course, that is Tom Watson. He won through, the MP for West Bromwich. He beat rivals including Caroline Flint and Stella Creasy. In the immediate aftermath, though, of the announcement that Jeremy Corbyn had been elected, a number of senior members of the party came out pretty quickly and said they would not be working alongside him. Tristram Hunt and Rachel Reeves were among those who said they would go to the backbenchers. The new Labour leader has also proposed changes already to the weekly Prime Minister's questions. He says, in fact, he would like to share out those question sessions between a number of the party's MPs. Well, lots to discuss. What does it mean for the Labour Party in the coming weeks and months? What does it mean for British politics? We'll debate all of that for people who were for and against Jeremy Corbyn. But first, we'll start the hour with this report from our political correspondent Robin Brandt. It does contain some flash photography.
His white hair just visible amidst the scrum. This is what you call a confident arrival for Jeremy Corbyn. With some of his supporters singing the red flag, the anthem of traditional Labour, the man some call simply JC was propelled into the conference centre. When the result came, it was that surprise that no one had predicted when the contest began. And the scale of the victory was staggering.
Jeremy Corbyn, 251,000.
He obliterated the others, winning in the first round by a huge margin. So, for the first time as leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn started by
thanking everyone who took part in this election. This huge democratic exercise of more than 500,000 people all across this country. It showed our party and our movement passionate, democratic, diverse, united and absolutely determined in our quest for a decent and better society that is possible for all.
He obliterated the others, winning in the first round by a huge margin. But he was conciliatory, perhaps a sign he does want to reach out. Later, outside a Westminster pub, he spoke to the BBC.
Fantastic moment, fantastic mandate for change in Britain, fantastic enthusiasm for real democratic politics. It's a great day.
The spin doctor said no more, but then came his warning to Labour MPs who've already quit top jobs in protest at his election.
There's going to be an inclusive, open process. I hope everyone will recognise the mandate we've received and that party members expect our party to deliver for them in Parliament.
So, who is Jeremy Corbyn?
Comrade Chairman.
A veteran MP of 32 years, he looks now as he did back then. He spent decades on the periphery of his party, associating with controversial causes, including the IRA and the Palestinian group Hamas. Now, 66 years old, he's a vegetarian who's never far from his bike. So, Saturday the 12th of September 2015, the day the Labour Party got a new leader it never ever expected to get, and the day it got a leader that the vast majority of its MPs don't support. There'll be euphoria for Team Corbyn, but once that's passed, the big challenge is now keeping Labour together. The man who used to be Labour leader was quick to offer his support, but there was a warning too.
Our party is a broad church, always has been, always will be, and the task of the leader is to reach all parts of that movement, and I believe that's what Jeremy should do.
I think obviously he and Tom and the new leadership team will now want to be reaching out across the country to the public, because that's what this has now got to be about. It's not just our debate within the party that we've had for the last few months, but about the country as well.
He'll savour the moment he never thought would happen, the moment some of his critics hoped they would never see. Now the challenge for Jeremy Corbyn is, can he make the group hug last? Can he keep Labour together? Robin Brandt, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, so much to debate. Let's start that discussion with John McTernan, who I'm pleased to say is with me, Director of Political Operations under Tony Blair. We heard 3 big warnings from Tony Blair over the course of the summer. Was he right? Is this going to be a disaster?
Well, the difficulty for Jeremy Corbyn, well, the difficulties start now. He's got to get himself a team. He's got to work out how to act in Parliament, how to handle Prime Minister's questions, and finally he's got to deal with the electorate. And the big issue is the Labour Party may have changed, but the electorate haven't. They didn't vote Labour because they don't trust Labour on running the economy, don't trust Labour on immigration, don't trust Labour on welfare, and Jeremy Corbyn's going to have to deal with that. All the pollsters he'll employ for the Labour Party will tell him that. So either he's got to change or the voters have to change.
Well, he might persuade voters that he has credible economic policies. He might come here on Monday and lay forward his plans. And why is there an assumption that won't work, that it just won't fly?
Because when the public voted for a right-wing government, a majority Tory government, they weren't saying what we'd really, really like as a left-wing Labour government. That's the central proposition of the Corbyn campaign, that people only voted for UKIP and Tories, right-wing parties, because the Labour Party weren't left-wing enough. And on economic management, people have got a very clear idea of what sensible economic management is. He's doing something about the debt, doing something about the deficit, and it is not the Corbynomics proposal of just printing money, getting the Bank of England to print more money and using that to fund public services. The public don't understand the technicalities, but they certainly know that's not good economic management, and that's the worry. There's some central Corbyn policies that will not run with the public, and the Tories will be quick to making that the centre part of their attack.
So why did so many people vote for him straight through in the first round? A huge response. He's tapped into something, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's tapped in to a lot of people who were going to vote Labour anyway, and the point is Labour is under 30% in the polls, and what he's mobilised is people who want a more left-leaning and a greener Labour Party. He's not tapped into anything in the public, and this is the difficulty. We have to win elections not inside the Labour Party, we've got to win them in the country at large, and the electors know what they want and they know what they like, and they've got a Tory government and the Labour Party. I don't know a single person who voted for Jeremy Corbyn who believes Jeremy Corbyn can win the election in 2020. So basically the Labour Party has abdicated any responsibility for trying to reverse anything the Tories do for at least the next 10 years. And I think the voters won't like that. I certainly don't like it. And I think it is going to be a very, very hard time for the most disadvantaged people in the country, the ones who need a Labour government to defend them.
So what should happen now, do you think? What is going to happen, given that he does come in with a mandate?
Well, it's very clear that Jeremy Corbyn's got a set of ideas. He should be allowed to run the Labour Party. He's the leader, he's got an overwhelming majority. He's going to have control of £7 million a year of short money. He can employ the staff he wants, he can appoint the shadow cabinet he wants, and the front bench he wants. In the end, the proof will be what the voters do. And I don't believe that the package that he's proposing to the public is sellable at any speed. And so we'll see next May in London in the mayoralty, we'll see next May in Wales, we'll see next year in council elections, the public's first verdict, and the only hope for the Labour Party to be successful in the next period is Alan Johnson's leadership of the EU campaign, where Labour are on the side of the public, are on the side of business, are in the right place, and could save some popularity, and there may be some rebuilding for the future possible there.
John McTernan, very good of you to come talk to us. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks for being with us. Well, Jeremy Corbyn, quite soon after he was announced as the new leader, came to a rally not far from here, just around the corner in Parliament Square. It had already been planned. It was a rally in favour of refugees, and he went out and addressed the crowds at that. Let's just hear a little of what he had to say just a few hours ago.
Our objective ought to be to find peaceful solutions to the problems of this world, to spend our resources on helping people, not hindering people, and to try and bring about that world of decency, human rights and justice. And so, none of this is simple, none of this is easy. But surely we have a principle between us all, that we are all human beings on the same planet. We're all human beings who want to live. We're all human beings that want the children to live and the next generation to hopefully be better off than we are. And you think of those families eking out an existence in refugee camps all around the world. They too are ambitious. Their children too want to be artists, poets, writers, engineers, lawyers, journalists, medicine practitioners, doctors and everything else. The waste of human resources by the lack of human rights is one of the great crimes of the last and this century. So today here in Parliament Square, we as ordinary decent people stand up and say to our government, recognise your obligations in law. That would be good. Recognise your obligations to help people, which you're required to do by law. That would be good. But above all, open your hearts and open your minds and open your attitude towards supporting people who are desperate, who need somewhere safe to live, want to contribute to our society and are human beings just like all of us.
So the new Labour leader there talking at that rally. Let's head to Parliament Square.
Shining Light TV.
There. Tell us what people have been saying to you this afternoon, Nick. Give us a sense of turnout. Everything that's been happening there.
Well, Jane, the crowds are thinning out now. That stage where Jeremy Corbyn was speaking from has now been dismantled. To be honest, there's more of a carnival atmosphere here. You can see the people gathered over there dancing. There's some drum and bass, actually, just at the footsteps of Viscount Palmerston. And, of course, he was a former Prime Minister, and now Jeremy Corbyn, the man who would be the next Labour Prime Minister. The hope is that the organisers of this march hope that his presence earlier today has really shone a light on their cause. They, of course, say that the UK should be doing more to take in refugees, in particular from Syria. Of course, the Prime Minister has said that something like 20,000 Syrians will be brought to the UK. We could just see the pictures from earlier on today when it was announced that Jeremy Corbyn had won the Labour leadership contest. Lots of the people on the march, clearly Corbyn supporters. This was at the start of their journey. They then marched through central London. The numbers swelled and finally they arrived here at Parliament Square this afternoon where Jeremy Corbyn addressed them. So the organisers hope that it's been a success. Clearly they feel that having Jeremy Corbyn as the leader and addressing the crowds here, he may be able to galvanise support for them. And in terms of the numbers, hard to say. The Metropolitan Police is never that keen to put an exact number on it, but it was in the thousands, and they hope that their voices are going to be heard far and wide.
Nick, thank you very much for now. Nick Beake there at the rally in Parliament Square. Let's head to Labour HQ. Our chief political correspondent Vicky Young is there. Is the new leader there, Vicky? Where do we think he is? No, he's not, but the taxi that he's been going around in for the last few hours is here, although it was empty. I mean, we'd expect that he may come here to greet staff. I mean, the big question is not just about the shadow cabinet, it's about the whole staffing of Labour HQ. Who will he bring in? What will he do to try and bring the party together, something that he keeps talking about.